This is the Powkiddy X39. Every other review of it on YouTube is bullshit. And I would know because I watched each and every other review before I made the purchase. And now I am taking the time to make this video.
Almost none of these systems are meant to be used with two players because the market consists entirely of single men. But this is the one option out there that lets you plug in two joysticks and have two players simultaneous.
There is an extraordinary opportunity to buy this now while the price is low. This cost me 20 Canadian dollars. $20 Canadian. This is a flawed masterpiece of hardware and software engineering. Flawed masterpiece. There are two old-fashioned USB ports here. Not USB-C, what we call USB-A. You can plug in two Neo Geo arcade sticks. You can sit down and play Toe Jam and Earl for the Sega Genesis, two-player, on this system with this screen. And it is a big screen for a portable handheld. I've seen so many other YouTube channels claim, oh, the USB port doesn't work. You can't plug in a joystick. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. And if you don't already own this type of joystick, these will work also. If you don't know what this is, I don't know, fucking Google it, okay? Neither of these controllers are unique in terms of the PCB, in terms of the circuit board inside, in terms of their compatibility. There will be numerous other joysticks and controllers that work with it. I've seen people commenting below these YouTube videos. The YouTube videos say, oh, no controllers work at all. And someone chimes in the comment section, oh no, I tried it with this, this, and this, and it worked fine. It doesn't work with every joystick or every controller. But I digress. Right now, in the year 2022, all of these devices, all of these neo-retro devices are made for lonely, middle-aged men. That's the fucking truth. If you don't have a girlfriend, don't buy it. If you don't have a wife, don't buy it. If you do not have a son or daughter and, someone you could imagine sitting down and playing a two-player game with, don't buy it. But if you do, if you have a special person in your life that you would want to, once in a while, play a two-player game with, right from the jump, this is a unique device. This is a device that has a huge fundamental advantage over all the competition, over every fucking device made by Anbernic, over every other device made by Powkiddy. This is Powkiddy hardware. The Powkiddy X39, that's what the box looks like. And a huge device, a huge advantage over the single most celebrated device of our time, which is the Miyoo Mini, right? Everyone says the Miyoo Mini is amazing. Can you play a two-player Sega Genesis game on it by plugging in two joysticks? No. Can you play a two-player NES game on it? 8-bit NES, 8-bit Famicom, by plugging in two joysticks? No. Can you play a two-player arcade game or a two-player Neo Geo game on a Miyoo Mini by plugging in two joysticks? No. All right? So this device, I am not telling you there ain't nothing wrong with it. There's a lot wrong with it. I'm about to tell you what's wrong with it. But in terms of what's right with it, and the fact that I was able to get this for $20 Canadian, right? This is already pretty amazing. If you're watching this video and you paid $100 for it, guess what? It's worth $100. If you paid $120 or $150, think about how much this device is worth compared to the fucking Evercade. The Evercade. Jesus. You have to calibrate these claims. If you say something is good, compared to what? If you say something is bad, compared to what? If you are a parent with a child, there's a lot of value. If you are a dude who has sex with a woman or with a combination of several women, guess what? This is the fucking console for you. Whereas the Miu Mini and all these fucking Anbernic devices are not. I really disagree with the reviewers who complain about the screen. For the Sega Genesis and for the 8-bit Nintendo NES Famicom, this screen gives you 1 pixel per pixel. That is perfect. There is no fucking reason why you would want to have a higher density screen, like a higher resolution screen at the same small size, where you have 2 pixels to 1 or 4 pixels to 1 or 5 or 8 pixels to 1. That's not desirable. The perfect screen for emulation is a screen that will give you a ratio of 1 pixel to 1 pixel. All right? This device does that for Sega Genesis, for the original 8-bit Nintendo. Not for Game Boy. Black and white Game Boy, trash. It's garbage. Don't buy this for black and white Game Boy. It's terrible. It works, but it's terrible. Game Boy Color, same thing. Okay? Do not buy this for any system other than Sega Genesis, also known as the Sega Mega Drive, and the 8-bit Famicom. Oh yeah, and also Neo Geo. If you don't have any other way to play Neo Geo games, yeah, for whatever reason, the Neo Geo emulation is flawless, is perfect. Arcade games are hit and miss. Some arcade games work well, some are terrible. But I would point out, right now, you can buy a portable device from Namco that only plays Pac-Man. That will cost you more than this. So if you wanted to play Arcade Perfect Pac-Man, this comes with Arcade Perfect Miss Pac-Man or Ms. Pac-Man. And Pac-Man Plus is on there. But also, for example, you could do Pac-Man Champion Edition. The 8-bit Famicom version of Pac-Man Champion Edition, it does emulate the music correctly. Not all systems do. Okay, well, if all you wanted to do was play Pac-Man, if all you wanted to do was play Tetris, and that may be, for a lot of people, that's a priority. Look at how many miniature devices are for sale on Amazon right now that only play Tetris, that will cost you more money than this device. Okay, so it can do some arcade games, and that may be of interest to you. The problem is, of course, what it doesn't do and what it currently falsely advertises it can do. 1, Super Nintendo, 0% playable. 0. Why? No reason. If you have a device powerful enough to play Neo Geo correctly, of course, it should be able to do Super Nintendo. PlayStation 1, it's a joke. Are you fucking kidding me? As already mentioned, black and white Game Boy, Game Boy Color, it's terrible. It's incredibly poor. It's just bad software engineering. What they have here is hardware with amazing potential, including the screen. The other critics are really misleading you about the screen. You do want a low-resolution screen to play classic low-resolution games, to have 1 pixel for 1 pixel. You have to ask yourself, do you want a device where, for example, you could sit down and play Contra for the NES. You could play Kage, also known as Shadow of the Ninja, for the NES. 2-player with 2 joysticks plugged in. Okay, nothing else can offer you this right now. Like, it's excellent for this. Of course, you could do Tetris. You could play Puyo Puyo, right? Again, whether this was your girlfriend, wife, gay lover, gender undisclosed person, this is something of tremendous value that right now nothing else on the market can compete with. And the price is so incredibly low because the manufacturer is aware that there are unresolved problems. Like, why is it Super Nintendo doesn't work? Why is it so many things it's supposed to be able to do either do not work at all or work very, very poorly? I tested several Sega Genesis games. Some Sega Genesis games don't work at all. Period. Some run perfectly. And I know the Genesis library really well. When I say perfectly, I mean perfectly, right? And some Genesis games run with the music garbled. And obviously, those games I'd only play for like 5 seconds. I'm just testing to see, okay, how screwed up is this? But I assume the games where there's a problem with the sound emulation, probably there will be other problems too. Probably there's going to be stuttering it won't be smooth, the gameplay, so on and so forth. But obviously just the music thing is intolerable. For me, that makes it unplayable. I'm not going to play Kid Chameleon if the music is not correct, is not accurate. Okay? So many of the games in the Genesis run perfectly. Many run badly or cannot run at all. Don't know why. I did notice in my testing, sometimes when I directly compared the Japanese version of a ROM to the American version, the Japanese ROM would work and the American one would not. So you can start to guess at what the problem is there in terms of software or firmware that needs to be updated and improved. I have written to the manufacturer. I've communicated with the manufacturer. You guys might not know this about me. I can communicate in Chinese. It's a big advantage if you're buying things directly imported from China. I've resolved several disputes, by writing in Chinese and also by recording a short video where I explain the problem, speaking in Chinese and pointing to the problem. Right? They say there will be a firmware update. That's their term. They said firmware. Firmware rather than software, rather than operating system. They chose the word firmware, that they're going to create new firmware that will solve all these problems. If so, I'm sure they will also increase the price when that happens. I have no reason to believe that will really happen. It is quite possible from my perspective that this thing will forever have the firmware that it has now. If you buy it, that's it. You're going to have to live with the limitations of this system. Okay? This system is a flawed masterpiece. It is amazing in many ways, and it is frustrating because it is flawed, because it is fucked up in so many flagrantly obvious ways. And the fundamental problem is that the entire market is ignoring two-player. Let alone four-player, let alone six-player or eight-player. It wouldn't be so hard for a software engineer to sit down and figure out a way to link two Anbernic devices so that you can have two-player simultaneous black and white Game Boy games. Would it be so hard to figure out a way to link two devices so that you can play Toe Jam and Earl on the Sega Genesis, whether on one device with two controllers or two devices that are in sync? I have looked into the other options for reasons you will have guessed. And dude, either multiplayer, either it's impossible, or when you look into the details, it's okay, this is just barely possible, but it's awful and it's not worth doing. So look, if you fit the use case for this device, you will have already known it in this video. Do not listen to incompetent, dishonest YouTubers like Wicked Gamer and Collector, My mind is blown by how grossly inaccurate and misleading his videos are. And I do not think it's because he's corrupt. Like, he's not being paid to lie or something. It's not that kind of situation. But the other people who do these reviews on YouTube, I can just say I sit back in astonishment at how a group of people who have voluntarily devoted themselves to a particular craft can be so unremittingly awful at it. I should have said unremittingly. Misspoke there. You know, I'm sorry, it's just amazing. I mean, it's like seeing a stand-up comedian who gets on stage and nobody laughs. And next week, he gets on stage and does the same jokes and nobody laughs again. And he does this again and again for years and makes his whole career out of it. I don't know how you can be doing reviews of hardware and software that are just so grossly inaccurate and misleading again and again. But right now, for this type of device, for the strange world of made in China neo-retro devices, okay, that is the deal. You cannot trust what you see on YouTube, but paradoxically, I am asking you to trust me.